Hi, folks. I'm Tamara Niesen, Chief Marketing Officer at Woo, joining from Muskoka, Canada. And I'm also happy to introduce our Head of Engineering and Interim CEO, Beau Lebens. Beau, please also do the same and introduce yourself and share where you're joining us from.
Thanks, Tamara. I'm Beau Lebens. I'm in Colorado at the moment. I'm Australian originally, but I've been in the WordPress space since the mid 2000s. And have been with Automatic for about 15 years now. So been around and really looking forward to digging into Universal Yums and your background and everything that you've got going on there.
We're thrilled to be speaking today with Devin Price, who is the Chief Technical Officer for a beloved WooCommerce merchant, Universal Yums, as well as a passionate WordPress and WooCommerce advocate. Devin, I'll give you the floor to introduce yourself, and please let us know where you're joining us from today.
Yeah, I live in Austin, Texas, so joining you from there. I've been head of engineering at Universal Yums for a little over 4 years, and it's a great role and a great size company. I get to work with product and very closely with marketing and obviously my team, and we build out the website at Universal Yums. And before that, I've been in various roles. So I've worked with big public companies like Demand Media. I've worked with small startups like Joy, which is another subscription commerce company. And I've been involved in WordPress for quite a while. I love working with WordPress and I love working with WooCommerce.
That's great. Thank you, Devin. And thanks for all of your contributions over those many years. Devin, I'd love for you to jump in and tell us a little bit more about Universal Yums, your unique business model. It's such an amazing organization, business, brand, bringing joy to millions of customers. The most recent I've heard, you shipped over 9 million orders. So to start, I'd love for you to share a little bit more about Universal Yums for folks who might be new to your brand.
Yeah, so Universal Yums is just about 10 years old. We're going to have our 10-year anniversary in September. And the core of the idea really came from Monique, who's one of our co-founders. She grew up in Ohio. She went to college and did her study abroad in China. And I don't think she had traveled much before. So China was a very eye-opening experience for her. And she got to meet so many people, learn so much about this other culture, and obviously eat a lot of the food. And she just had all these flavors and tastes and things she had never heard of before or eaten before. And a lot of it was, eating with people from that country and talking about culture and having this cultural exchange. And so she came back to the United States. She was working with Procter & Gamble as a brand manager, I think. And she just kept thinking about how cool that experience was and how many people around her hadn't traveled and hadn't been exposed to any of this stuff. And this is right when subscription commerce was kind of taking off, like Birchbox, some of those ones had just started, and that idea was really fresh. And she thought, what if we could make this experience and give it to people in the United States? So that's the core of the idea. And what we do every month is we send out a box that features products from a different country. It might be Ukraine, which we recently did, Italy, Belgium. And when you get your box, you have products, snacks from that country, and also a booklet that talks about that country. And we have quizzes and games, and a lot of families open it up together and they go through all the products. They do taste testing, they read through the booklet. And so it really is an experience that people get to have. And so that box is still our core experience. And then over the years, we've added on some additional things, but it's still really centered around an experience and exploration and food.
Beau, I know you're eager to get into some of the technical side of things.
Yeah, thank you, Tamara. Let's talk a little bit about the team.
Yeah, so our other co-founder, Eli, actually built the first version of the website almost 10 years ago on WordPress. And they worked, he managed it himself for the first couple of years. And then as the business started to grow, brought in an agency to work on that. And then 4 years ago, I was the first in-house engineering hire on on the team. And so I got to take over a lot of that stuff, and we continued to work with an agency. And then we started to bring more of it in-house. So until very recently, it was a team of 3 in-house, myself and 2 other full-time. And then we've worked with 2 contractors, one based in Croatia, another in Slovenia, and they're awesome. And they work part-time and give us additional capacity. And so that's our engineering team. We have a marketing team, and under marketing is design, and we coordinate closely with them on the creative. And then we also have product, which has some of the other product ideas for how we're going to build out like new experiences and new products on the website.
So it's pretty lean team still, given the size of the business and the number of customers that you've got.
Yeah, so we're around a $40 million a year business. We have over 100,000 subscribers, which holiday is a big period when we have a lot of gift giving too. So it really grows over the holiday period. But yeah, our in-house like office team is pretty small. I think we're around 30 people. So we do run pretty lean. We also have all our warehouse in-house too. So we have a warehouse team that also, I think it's around 20 normally. And then holiday too, we add people so we can meet holiday demand.
Before we get into some of the more complexities of a subscription business like yours, I just want to touch on, again, the tech stack that you're actually running on, or the hosting environment that you're in.
WordPress, WooCommerce, obviously. We have a couple plugins that we use, but then we also have a big MU plugin, right, where we have all our custom functionality that we have for the website, and it's quite extensive, right? Our checkout flow, people need to select a size and a length, and in a country, their first destination. And then on the checkout page, we have lots of custom stuff in terms of shipping and the date you actually want something to arrive. We send data out to a lot of third parties. So we're integrated with a warehouse management system called Fulfill. So all our orders go into Fulfill. We also send data into Klaviyo, which is our email marketing platform. We also send data into Meta, right, for advertising and some other places. We've built a custom data service as well in Laravel. So we really wanted to manage the flow of information or of data. We found that when we initially hooked up with a shipping provider, they were just trying to hit our API and pull all our order data out, and they were essentially DDoSing us. So we decided we wanted to manage the flow of information. We wanted to push information out to third parties rather than have them constantly pull us and try and pull our data. So we built this data service. We pull data off of WooCommerce, and then we send it to these third parties through our data service.
I'd love to switch gears a little bit and talk about more like the actual sort of business side of things, and subscriptions in particular. Like running a subscription business is complex. And then layering onto that, the fact that you are shipping food, I imagine that comes with a lot of challenges. Can you talk us through sort of any of the challenges or complexities that you've had with just the actual process of running a subscription business that's shipping food?
I often joke with our CEO that I think he's trying to build the most complex business possible. Because every bit of it has so much complexity to it. So starting with sourcing the products, we need to have supplier relationships in all these different countries. And then we need to get the product out of those countries. So we have a procurement team that works on this. And like we just did Ukraine, right, which is in the middle of a war. So you can imagine the challenges getting product out of Ukraine. But we wanted to work with those suppliers again. So we need a lead time of at least 6 months. And then we work with those suppliers. The ingredient information needs to be in a certain way in the United States. So a lot of times we have to have them update their wrappers so they can print the wrappers either in English and with the right measurements and everything. Or if they can't do that, it needs to come into the United States, and we need to sticker it over so that it has all the right ingredients. You know, the FDA has a lot of rules about what type of stuff can go into food. And so we have a compliance team that makes sure like all the dyes and the products and everything that's going in there is compliant. Then we got to figure out how to get it from the factory onto a truck, onto a boat. We got to figure out which shipping channels it needs to go through. Getting product out of Ukraine. I know I think it was the border to Poland was backed up like 5 days. So we had to reroute through another country and get it into another port and then make sure it gets on the boat and then it gets into the United States. Sometimes it gets held up at the port or there's a FDA hold because they want to inspect the product. So it's going to take another 10 days to get through FDA. We get it into our warehouse and then it gets inspected and then we need to take all this product and put it in boxes. And so just the logistics of like sourcing in all these different countries, getting it into the United States and going through that is huge. And then of course, like during the pandemic, we had all the supply chain stuff. So getting it on boats was harder and more expensive. So yeah, it's very complex from that aspect. And then you got to think about things like chocolate, which we do chocolate mostly in our winter months. So Belgium, Germany, like a lot of those countries have a lot of chocolate products, Switzerland. So we need to offer those more during the winter months. And we do more like Brazil, Colombia, those types of Taiwan, those countries in the summer months. And then food, of course, expires. So you need to move through it pretty rapidly and pay attention to those expiration dates. And if it doesn't get sold in time, then that product either needs to get donated or destroyed. It's a super complex business for sure.
You're all definitely playing at expert level on this one. How much of all of those logistics actually is integrated or flows through the WooCommerce site itself? Or do you have other systems managing those logistics, or how does that work?
So some of it is done through a warehouse management service, Fulfill. So like the purchase orders that go out and some of that, we're trying to figure out how to do better inventory forecasting. And especially because we're starting to sell product through more channels now. So I don't know if that will end up happening through a Fulfill or if we're even going to have to layer another service on top of that to figure it out. But to answer your question, no, most of that is outside of WooCommerce. We just list the products when they're ready for sale. And then for our boxes, we have quite a bit of custom code. We have a custom post type that has all the boxes defined and the dates that they're available. And they have some other information about that. And then that data is used in the checkout process and also the renewal process.
I think Tamara mentioned you've processed we've sent out over 9 million boxes. I believe at the end of last year, you mentioned something on LinkedIn that you were processing 30 orders a minute on your biggest sale day. So I'd love to hear a little bit about your experience with scaling from a technical perspective and I guess a business perspective, but what's it been like scaling WooCommerce over the last 10 years?
Yeah, well, it's been really fun. I think it's great to work on an e-commerce site of this scale just because you immediately see the impact of any changes you make. So when I was first joined the company, one of our biggest things is we were using ShipStation at the time. And like I mentioned, we had that like integration issue. So actually what was happening is someone at the company was exporting all of our orders into a spreadsheet and then importing them into ShipStation. So that was one of the first things we needed to solve because we were growing rapidly. So something that before just took like 4 or 5 hours is now taking 3 days, 4 days. And, as we added more subscribers, that kept getting longer. So that was the main reason that we started building out the data service. So that pulled the orders out of WooCommerce and then passed them into ShipStation. And now we use that to pass it into a lot of other things. But that allowed us to, obviously someone should be exporting stuff in a spreadsheet and importing. You want to get as much of that out of the business as you can. And so we do a lot of stuff in our data service, which is built on Laravel. I think there's probably other ways we could have done that. We probably could have used the action scheduler to push stuff out or think through other ways of doing it. Our customer dashboard started to slow down a lot once we had over 4 or 5 million orders in there, just because it was a big query and it had to do a lot of joins on metadata. And so we're very excited about high performance order storage. We're very glad that got merged and we've updated to use that. We had to do a lot of hacks to kind of get stuff running quickly in there. So we wouldn't pull orders that were, over a year or two, because that made the query a little more efficient, not to pull data that far back and stuff. We did some hacks in terms of the type of order. We reused different columns that were in the post table so that we could use them to run more efficient queries again. So with high performance order storage, we've actually been rolling back all the hacks that we made, and it runs just as quick. So I think people starting a store today or scaling a store today probably don't need to be as worried about some of that stuff. There's just random things that happen too when we send out an email to 500,000 people or whatnot. We want to have a really solid landing page that's cached, and we really had to go through and check all the queries that are happening and make sure that it's optimized so that if uncached visitors do hit that it's still good. We use transients a lot to store temporary data, but that we don't want to be querying constantly. I used to get this question all the time when I was working on smaller sites more as a freelancer, WooCommerce, can it scale? And I was like, I don't know. I was like, we might be getting 100 orders a day. And yeah, now I see that we're running 10,000 renewals an hour on our renewal days, and just operating at this totally different level of scale. So I kind of think back on that and laugh. And I was like, yeah, no, we probably could have just thrown a little more server resources at it for quite a long time before we had to really start getting in there and worrying about scaling the site.
Great to hear that H+ is working out for you. That was obviously a big project, a long time coming, but we've had some great feedback from folks. So really cool to hear that it's allowing you to get rid of some of those hacky custom solutions as well.
I'd be curious to learn a little bit more in terms of fresh new ideas. Are there any big bets that the company is thinking about in terms of continuing the great momentum that you've already created in subscriptions, or potentially experimenting in different channels or markets?
And this year, we're going to be doing some stuff with retail as well. And I don't think, I didn't ask whether I can share all this at the moment, so I'll just keep it quiet for now. But we are going to be working with some big national retailers to test out different products, which I think will be really interesting. Some customers just aren't going to buy through a website, or maybe the subscription model isn't for them. But if they see it on a shelf where they normally shop, it might be something that they're willing to pick up and try. So it could potentially be a big new market, but we're experimenting and we'll see, and we'll probably have to iterate on the product quite a bit to find exactly, what works for a DTC customer may not exactly for a retail customer. So yeah, it's a fun challenge that we're working on this year.
Curious if you have any feedback or comments to the team here in terms of how we've either partnered with you in the past or how we might be able to partner more with you to, maybe launch some of those experiments.
It's an open source project, right? We don't pay for WooCommerce, so we're not really, expecting any sort of support. So we have a great team and we try and build what we can. Recently, we did have an issue actually after switching to high performance order storage. We had something where 20% of our renewals failed. And so I shared it and we debugged as much as we could, but the WooCommerce team kind of jumped in. Multiple people messaged me and they're like, hey, we'll take a look at this. And it got put into an issue. Wrote down the developer's name, Ashu Jain. I guess he had worked on a bunch of the high performance order storage. He just went above and beyond, and we had a lot of trouble trying to reproduce it. I think it was something that probably very few stores are running 10,000 orders per hour. So it was kind of a concurrency thing that was happening when trying to update an address record. And so, a really edge case thing that happens at really high scale. And so they were super supportive and tracing that down, and they put a fix in. We also, weren't counting on WooCommerce. We wanted to find a fix immediately for our customers. So we also worked on a solution ourselves, which is really cool. If you're running on Shopify and there's a bug or there's a problem, like you probably can't touch anything about it. But for us, we're like, okay, we're seeing this issue right now. Like, let's see if we can get a patch. And we patched WooCommerce core ourselves so that our next renewals was fine. And then the core team came up with a more bulletproof solution that they rolled out to everyone. So it was kind of nice to be able to find something and alert the team. And now the product is improved for everyone. The team has reached out every now and then to check on how things are going. It's always been super supportive, which we appreciate. But yeah, we're just taking the software and running with it and adding our tweaks, which is great.
Really cool to hear that sort of feedback loop. And the fact that you actually specifically got to work with Vedantu is great. He was actually one of the core architects of HPOS. So you got to talk to exactly the right person to make any fixes there. And that sort of engagement with our ecosystem is exactly the sort of thing that we're really trying to lean into and open up these lines of communication between customers like you. Obviously, it is an open source project, and the way that we make it get better for everyone is exactly this sort of thing. So really cool to hear that you had that circle of improvement, and definitely anything else like that comes up, we're here for it. It may be an edge case for you, but it turns out when you've got millions of merchants doing all sorts of weird and wonderful things with your software, that edge cases often don't end up being that edge after all.
Yeah, I can imagine all the different use cases for WooCommerce, from like rentals to membership. There's just so many companies using it in so many different ways. So yeah, we're doing high scale subscriptions and we hit our little snags there. So yeah, it's a lot of surface area to cover for your team. But yeah, we appreciate it.
One of the things that really opened my eyes when I switched over to working on WooCommerce 5 years ago was just the sheer diversity of what people are doing with it is beyond anything I had ever imagined, that's for sure. So you're doing this extreme scale subscriptions. We have people doing Flash Bitcoin sale and I don't know, gaming rentals and all sorts of things at all sorts of different scales. And yeah, it's just great to see what people come up with and the range of businesses that can be enabled with this software. That's one of the things that keeps me excited about working on it.
We're going to spice some things up a little bit here and jump over to some rapid fire. Most popular snack amongst subscribers.
We have a lot of favorites. If you go to Universal Yums /shop right now, you can we rank them by bestsellers. So you can see the ones that are trending right now. It depends on what we have in stock and then what our last box was, because quite a few people, they get the box and then they reorder their favorites. So I think our most recent one was the United Kingdom. And I think that we have some pickle. I have to go look and see what exactly it is. But there's also rhubarb custard bonbons in there that are really good if you like chewy stuff. Big time favorites. Pop Smile is always like a favorite. It's like this popcorn from Taiwan. It's like egg yolk or like different weird flavors.
And you mentioned pickle, which brings me to the next one, potentially the most controversial or hot take snack item that you might have.
I mean, definitely durian has like strong opinions like everywhere. It's such like a strong flavor. So we actually, in our boxes, we try to put in some flavors and some products that we think are going to be controversial. Like some people may love them, but a lot may hate them because we think that's kind of fun, like just to have a surprise flavor in there. We could go super generic and like put in stuff that we think everyone will love, but we want to have like a variety and introduce people to something maybe they've never had before. So durian, I think there's like an Indonesian like wafer that's like cheese and durian. So yeah, that's a very controversial one. And then I think licorice is always somewhat controversial. Some people love licorice and other people do not at all. So yeah, there's definitely, when we're tasting the box as a company, there's some people that are like, this is my absolute favorite. I love it. And then some people are like, this, I hate it. Like this, not something that I want to eat on a regular basis. So it should be a good mixture in all the boxes.
I love that idea of like challenging your customers a little bit and sort of tying it back to that original travel experience of your founder, because like that's sort of the essence of travel to me, is experimenting with food and trying out different things. And you're not going to love it all. You will eat some things that people in that country have grown up with. And we were chatting about this before you joined us, Devin. My example of that is Vegemite from Australia. I grew up with it. I really like it. Most people who haven't tasted it and then try it absolutely hate it because it's salty and weird and it's just not what anyone's expecting. So I think that's really cool that you challenge customers and give them something to talk about. Are there any insights that you have for people who may be listening, or things that you want to share, or anything you think we didn't cover that is worth talking about?
I think the subscription model is like a really fun model. So people who have a business and can find a way to incorporate subscriptions, I think it's a really neat way to have a connection with your customer and a relationship, and obviously like recurring revenue. That is a little bit predictable. It really helps even out any business, and it's a really cool business model. So people are looking to explore that. I think it's really an interesting way to go. And then in terms of WooCommerce, like we've built a really huge business on it. I know people ask, can you scale it? And I think that the answer is yes, get some solid hosting. And then you can definitely grow your business on it and not have to pay a margin to another third party. You own your whole stack. You can negotiate really good rates with credit card providers at scale and own every aspect of it. And that's why we're on WooCommerce. And so we can really customize and make a great experience. So yeah, I'm definitely an advocate for what we're doing. And it's a fun platform to build on. For sure. We really like working with WooCommerce and WordPress.
I think we've covered it all, and just really grateful for your time today, Devin and Beau. And thank you for joining us and having a really great conversation. I think we've taken away a lot, and I'm sure our audience has as well.
Cool. Well, thanks for having me.